Check 1 2 3. Check 1 2 3. In this episode of Mic Check, I talk with Brian Speiser, who has worked as a touring audio engineer and production manager for over 25 years, including 13 years for the Tedeschi Trucks Band. He has also produced several studio and live albums, as well as supervising vinyl production for many artists. Brian's studio and vinyl work focuses on analog projects and making the best-sounding vinyl releases possible. His touring and production credits also include Indigo Girls, Amy Ray, Brandi Carlile, 311, They Might Be Giants, and more. In our conversation, Brian reflects on his extensive journey in the music industry, the sound check processes, the balance between digital and analog technologies in live sound, the collaborative nature of music production, the importance of acoustics, the evolving challenges of touring, and much more, including a huge recently released reunion concert that Brian co-produced and co-mixed. Here's my interview with Brian Speiser. This episode is brought to you by AV Room Service, specializing in acoustic design services and products to optimize the performance of your room and equipment experience. Visit us at avroomservice.com or book a call to speak with me to see how I can help you get the most out of your room and gear. AV Room Service, the science of perfected sound. So, Brian, good to see you. I see it's snowy where you are. It's snowy here, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, you probably have more snow than we do.
It seems like it's always snowing here.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. We had our first official snow day yesterday. First officials of the season. We got about 4 inches or so. What do you have up there?
Enough to be snow blowing every day.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
That's a lot of work.
It started on Thanksgiving.
Really?
Today is the first day, knock on wood, it has not snowed since then. We moved here to Ohio last January, and it snowed for about 2.5 months straight. Why? Which is why
you're up there by Lake Erie. So you should expect the cold and the wind and some snow. It's interesting here in central Ohio, I'm just east of Columbus. We seem to have this protection where the more severe weather is just to our north or south of us. So often, they do a really good job of keeping the roads clean too. But we often are going, wow, I'm glad we're not dealing with that, So,
yeah, I will say when my girlfriend and I decided to move here, she's from here, and when we decided to move here from New York City, the constant snow was definitely not in the brochure.
Yeah.
Not prepared for it.
The humidity is another, and I come from California. The humidity, oh my gosh, I could never be out working, doing that, some kind of labor outside in the summer when it's humid like that. It just drains me. So.
Yeah, I have yet to spend a ton of summertime here. I'm usually...
Oh, you haven't yet?
No, the summer is really the busiest season for us with touring. So I'm not, I've been here, for a couple of weeks during summertime.
Okay.
That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so Brian, tell me a little bit about what you do. And I know you do quite a bit.
Well, my main, assuming you're asking about my main job, which is I'm the production manager and front of house sound engineer for Tedeschi Trucks Band. I've been touring with them for about 13 years now.
13?
In January, it'll be 13 years.
That's amazing. Wow. Yeah. That's impressive. Huh.
And aside from that, we work quite a lot. So that job keeps me busy through most of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do have some downtime, I generally will either I'll try and produce an album once, I try and produce an album once a year. doesn't usually time out, that I have the time to do it. So it winds up being one every few years. And I do a decent amount of quality control work, supervising vinyl releases for people, helping them usher their albums through the vinyl process, to make
Tell
sure
me
that
more specifically about that. What do? You say you usher them through.
so it's different on every project, but generally the service that I'll offer to people for that is to, depending on how their album was recorded, if it was recorded on tape or if if their masters are digital, I will generally try and pick the mastering engineer, who's going to cut the lacquers, what pressing plant is going to be used, and then I will listen. Once the lacquers are cut, I'll listen, compare them to, if it's a digital master, I'll compare it to the digital master to make sure that the vinyl has all of the extra qualities that the vinyl should have over the digital master. Or if it's not, if it's an analog recording, I'll just listen to the lacquers and make sure that the album sounds its best, and work with the mastering engineer on any changes that have to be made when the lacquer's being cut. And so I'll do all of the QC of the lacquer, and then once that goes through to whoever's going to do the metal work and the pressing, I'll then, a different process, listen to the test pressings to make sure that there's nothing wrong with the test pressings, that that everything's correctly centered, that there's no pops or any sounds that are distracting from the music, and if there are, I'll send very detailed notes back to the pressing plant so that they can either clean up the mothers and the stampers, or if they have to make a new set of stampers to fix the problem. And I don't do it as much as I used to. At this point, I mostly do it for bands that I work with or albums that I am working on. When I first started doing this, my thought was that I would this would be a good shift into maybe eventually not having to travel for work so much and do more of this kind of work. But then after the first handful of projects I did, I discovered this was a thankless job that was way too much time for not enough money. And there's way too many places, way too many steps in the process for something to go wrong. And too much fighting with record labels. And so I decided, the people that I've already done this for, if they want me to continue doing it for them, I will. Albums that I am producing or mixing, I'll do this for. But for the most part, I won't. I've taken down my website offering this service to do this for them.
Well, then we shouldn't be promoting this at all then.
I mean, the reality is, who was I talking to about this recently? When you and I last saw each other, which was at the Capitol Audio Fest, I was talking about this work that I've been doing in a presentation that I did. And one of the questions that someone asked me, my answer was, the kind of projects that I generally work on don't have the as much, not unlimited, but as much time and budget devoted to the quality of the vinyl as, say, the labels that mostly work in the reissue world. And their question to me was, well, why don't you work for one of those companies? And my response was, if one of those companies is looking for someone to do that job and offers it to me, I would love to do that. I would love to be involved in supervising vinyl production for a company that, is more focused on audiophile vinyl production, as opposed to newer music that doesn't really have the time or budget for those things. So, that's definitely a long-term goal. I would love to be doing that for one of those companies at some point if the opportunity arose. But as far as for newer music, on current labels releasing newer music, it's a lot. It's difficult to try and push the audiophile agenda on projects like that.
Okay, so brings up a lot of questions. you say that, that you run into a lot of difficulties. What are some of those difficulties?
Um, well,
Yeah, I mean,
when it comes to
you see,
as the main difficulties become skit timing and budget. So when a label is putting out is putting out an album of newer music, there's a release date that is very much they need to hit, so that the vinyl is available when an album comes out, as opposed to an
right?
album coming out and then the vinyl coming out 5 or 6 months later.
Yeah,
Um, and there's, people will spend 50, 60, $100 on the best sounding reissue of a Miles Davis record. They're not going to necessarily spend that on current newer music. So
sure.
record labels need to be able to keep the production costs down to a certain number. And in order to meet those numbers, they're not necessarily going to use the same pressing plants or vinyl formula or jacket manufacturers as reissue companies that can throw more money at a project because the buyers are going to be spending minimum of $50 per record.
Yeah,
So the projects that I generally do for current bands that are putting out newer music, their labels are generally trying to hit a mark where the record is, $30 max,
right. Yeah, yeah.
which is hard to do in an audiophile way in general. But most of the projects I wind up working on are fully analog, which makes it way more difficult to try and keep things within those numbers, because the amount of really good mastering engineers that are cutting lacquers from tape are, it's a list of, 5 people maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, who are some of the what are some of your favorite places for electroplating and for pressing and so forth?
Um, the majority of projects I do, Gary Salstrom does the metal work, who was from QRP in Kansas and now runs Paramount Plating and Pressing in Denver, Colorado. So he's done the majority of my projects. Some of them have gone through RTI as well, and Doran has plated those, and that's pretty much it for me.
Okay.
If I'm gonna be on board on a project, it's one of those. It's going
Hmm.
to one of those two people. And then when I when I get to have full say and it's the choices that I want, I've generally been trying to press as much as possible at in Denver at Paramount.
Okay. Okay.
But I've done I've done some work at art with RTI as well. Um, and there's a few others. I really like Got a Groove here in Cleveland. I haven't done any projects personally with them, but I've been there
Yeah.
and I've talked to them, and I've heard a lot of the stuff that has come out of there, and I think they do really great work, and I think their team is really uh, on top of it.
Yeah.
Um,
They've got a new, well, it's probably a couple years old now, electroplating facility right here in Columbus.
oh, really? Got a Groove
Yeah.
does?
Huh?
Got a Groove has one there
Yes.
in
Yeah.
Columbus? Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting. Good to know. The last time I was there, they were not doing their own metal
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. In fact, I did. I went in there um, and I'll be coming out with a little video on them too, to help promote them. But yeah, really nice guys and a nice facility. I mean, one of the nicer facilities. And
Yeah, it's
right here in
interesting. We were
Columbus.
talking the other day about being surprised at the conditions at a lot of pressing plants around the country.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
I've been good friends with Gary for Salstrom for a number of years, and so when he made the move out to Denver, every summer on tour, I would hit when we get to Red Rocks, we always have a couple days off in Denver, and so I would get to meet up with Gary and check out the plant. So I've seen every incarnation of it, when it was just a concrete slab, when the machines went in there but were still packaged up and not set up. This last summer when we were there, was the same day that they were starting to press a record that I had been working on.
Oh, wow.
First time I got to see the plant up and running. But it's it's like being in a hospital. It's so pristine and clean and
Clean.
everything you've
Yeah.
tried. It's really impressive.
Yeah.
And Gary and everyone involved there, David, who owns it with Gary, they care so much about the work that they're doing.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
it's something that I just always want to be
A
involved
part of,
in.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can, you can bank on it. You can depend on them to do a good job, which is wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good
Hey,
to
when you
trust
are
that.
doing QC on, say, a lacquer, are you doing this at home on your system?
Usually, yes. I have two different systems. I have one that's an audio file setup that I'm listening for very detailed things, and then I have a much more moderate system that's still a very good and revealing system that I
Yeah.
will also check to make sure that that at least that system is also able to track everything properly, and that there's no noises or weird things going on that system. Um,
Hmm.
so that's what I'll do when I'm listening to lacquers. When I'm listening to test pressings, I'm just listening on my main system. But because at that point I'm not listening for sonics quite as much. I'm just listening for defects.
Right.
But there's
Right.
been plenty of scenarios where a record I'm working on has a strict deadline and I'm on tour. And so in those situations, I have enough friends in the industry that either have uh, shops that I could listen to lacquers or test pressings at, or have a really good home system that I know that they are also OCD audiophiles that I can
Yeah.
trust hearing on their system. So there's been several situations where I'm out on the road and I have to I have to phone a friend and be like, "Hey, I'm going to be in town in a week and a half. Can I show up at 9 in the morning and spend, an hour and a half, 2 hours, like listening to the same two sides of music over and over again before you open up for the day or something?" So I've been
Yeah.
fortunate to be able to make that happen as well. And then there's been one or two times, like the off chance situation where I just can't sort it out and the artist has to step in and I have to find a place for them to receive a lacquer or a test pressing and tell them exactly what I would be listening for
Yeah.
so that they're listening for that. That's happened maybe one time. It's very
Yeah.
rare.
You mentioned vinyl formulas. What's your experience with that?
I'm still learning the differences. Um, I know that I generally, any project I've worked on, the best sounding version of it that I've heard is always just the straight black VR 600 vinyl.
Hmm.
Um, I own plenty of other records that are on other formulas like Clarity vinyl or D2, VR 900, all of these other formulas that I've heard other things that I really like. I haven't really had too much of a chance to hear music I've been working on pressed on those vinyl formulas. The last record that I worked on, I was able to hear the same record pressed on three different formulas,
Wow.
and still with that, I still prefer the VR 600 black vinyl for that style of music and for the content that it was. I think there's different content sounds best on different formulas. I know,
Huh.
but I also read a lot of forums and I see a lot of people that talk about how they tend to notice more surface noise on some of those pressings that are on Clarity or Ultra Clarity or like any of those different uh, higher end formulas of vinyl, and I've never had that experience.
Mm-mm.
Like
Huh.
anything I've listened to on my setup, when I'm listening to those kinds of records, it's generally quieter content that's on the record, and for me, the surface noise just disappears.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I often get a sense like I'm listening to a master tape as opposed to a
Mm-hmm.
record. So I've never really had that experience where I've, you know, dropped the money on one of those expensive audiophile reissues and then been let down by surface noise. I've never had that happen personally.
Yeah. This opportunity that you had to test 3 different formulas with um, the same recording, was that also from the same press?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
And is this something then that some pressing plants offer you?
No, this was more because I've been working with the team at Paramount on a few projects, and they're still a very new pressing plant. So they, they were still trying to, they were still in the
Experimenting.
experimental phase of just seeing what different things do.
Yeah.
And it's the plant is run by people that really care over the top about what everything sounds like. So they wanted to see what they can, what tweaks they can make to different things
Yeah.
to hear the differences, and are always, have asked me on multiple occasions if I would be an extra set of ears to
Yeah.
tell them what the differences I hear on projects that I wasn't involved with. And then when it got to this project, they had asked if I would be interested in hearing a few different options that they were toying with. And there were things that I liked better about the other formulas of vinyl that I didn't choose, that if what you were asking me about the difficulties I sometimes face, if those were not an issue at all and money and time were not an issue at all, there's a good chance I would have picked one of those other formulas, but then had the lacquers recut to make up for some sonic changes that I noticed
Right.
on formulas. Not having that luxury at all, it was clear that while there were other benefits to those other formulas, it didn't serve the music the way it had been, the way the
Right.
lacquers had been cut initially.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you heard any without the carbon black, just clear vinyl?
Yeah, yeah, I have a few of those.
Okay. Yeah. And your impression there? Any advantages?
In my experience, the few records that I have uh, on that vinyl formula sound astonishing.
Yeah.
Um, but again, because those are always there's never new music coming out that way. It's
Yeah.
always reissues that don't have the same kind of budgetary or timeline
Yeah.
restrictions. So they can listen to a test pressing on that formula, hear what needs to be changed, and master it again and cut lacquers again. Any project that I'm on, by the time it gets to test pressing, if I were to recommend going back to mastering to cut a new lacquer,
Yeah.
my phone
Right.
calls would be ignored.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Understood. All right. Good discussion. Um, so question number 2. We're only on number 2.
See, I can get a little too
I
long.
know. You were worried going, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. We're not
Well,
going
when
to
you
fill
edit it, you're going to
time.
find like maybe a minute and a half worth of usable material in that 22 minutes.
No, not at all. How and when did you get into this business?
Into the business of my real job or this
Well,
vinyl?
I would say, into the bit, let's say making a profession out of the music industry. How
Right.
and when?
So I grew up in a musical house.
Ah,
Everyone in my family played instruments. My father is a piano player, and taught music. So there was always music in my house. I started playing instruments probably, I guess, by the time I was in third or fourth grade, I was playing instruments, and I play multiple instruments. when I went to college for television production.
Oh,
And when while we were learning all while we were learning television production, once we got to the point where we were sitting in an audio booth learning about the console, it became clear that most of the professors knew a very minimal amount of how this gear worked. So they taught us everything about how the cameras worked, the lights in the studio, the video switchers, the machines, the tape decks. And when we got into the audio room, they were generally showing, okay, you plug a microphone in here, you turn it on here, and you bring this fader up. And when
so
I
nothing
asked,
about mics or positioning or consoles or, huh?
or
Yeah,
what any of the knobs in between the gain and the fader do.
yeah.
And when I asked what that stuff does, I was told, don't worry about it. You don't need to know that for this.
Hmm.
So instinctually, I just kind of buried myself in that room and
Yeah.
learned everything I could about doing that.
Hmm.
Um, And so I just became very interested in how audio consoles and microphones and speakers and how all that gear worked. And since I was playing in bands, there was a band in New York that I was seeing play a lot. And I had asked the keyboard player if I can show up and just set up his keyboard equipment in exchange for not buying tickets to come see them.
Uh-huh.
And
You're a little roadie.
yeah, it was my first attempt at being a roadie, and I knew how to set up his gear. And while I was doing that, their sound engineer, I watched their sound engineer ringing out monitors, um, and I thought that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I don't understand what this guy is doing. He was just making noises into a microphone and then just shouting out frequencies to a guy behind a console, telling him frequencies to adjust, and it just blew my mind at the time. I must have been like, I don't know, I was probably like 18. And
Huh.
so I asked him,
He
I
had
was
an
like,
RTA or something that he was looking at and yelling?
nope,
No, he's just going by ear?
going by ear. It blew my mind.
Whoa.
And so
Wow.
I had asked him if I could follow him around for a few weeks and just assist him he was, aside from mixing this band, he was also doing local shows near where he lived, just at bars and clubs. And I
Yeah.
asked if I can help him out and just kind of learn what he's doing. And that's what I did. And he had recommended to me, he get a picture of a graphic equalizer, a 31 band graphic equalizer. Learn what each of those numbers on there are, and then get yourself a tone generator, set it to each of those frequencies and learn those frequencies, learn what they sound like, figure out how to
Identifying.
how to identify them, and
Yeah.
create just things in your own head that make those tones recognizable by those numbers.
Yeah.
And then and that's how you'll learn how to call out frequencies that are feeding back when you're ringing something out. And then once you get a handle on that, also learn what those frequencies do sonically to your voice or to an instrument.
Instrument. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
so at the same time that I was messing around with the gear at college, I was also learning that stuff by shadowing him.
Yeah.
And then I
Oh, that must have
graduated
been
college
great.
and I just knew that I didn't want to continue working in television production. I wanted to stay with this. So I've I found a company in New York, a sound company that did audio production for concerts as well as for corporate events and weddings and anything that requires microphones and speakers and consoles. And I worked for that company for a while until someone called and asked if there was anyone there that would be interested in coming and doing a tour for a band, being an engineer on tour. That was in 2000, I want to say,
Okay.
and I haven't stopped touring since then. Somewhere along the line, I actually learned how to do the job.
Huh. Well, yeah. So take me through you as a FOH and a sound check. What's your process?
Um, Well, at this point, with the band that I work for, I'm very fortunate with the band that I work for. I have a really great systems engineer who sets the PA up, and we have the same PA every day.
Yeah.
So at this point, sound check is not for me; it's for the band to get used to the space that they're going to be playing in. Um,
Well, you
so
too. I mean, you're having to adjust to the space, the acoustics.
slightly, but most of that's being done before we sound check by our systems engineer.
Ah,
And we'll work together to an extent where I'll, while he's listening and tuning the PA to the room, like if there are certain things that are jumping out at me that I think he should revisit, I'll mention it to him. But for the most part, we've been working together a long time and he knows what I'm listening for. So generally, at this point, by the time the band's on stage for sound check and I go out there, I'm not really, if a musician has changed an instrument or a microphone has changed, I'm paying attention to things like that. But the sound check, there's not as much these days with this particular tour that the sound check is for me.
right.
But in general, in prior to this scenario, the longest part of my job as a front of house engineer, when I'm not in a scenario where I'm carrying my own PA system, is figuring out why left and right don't sound the same at 99% of the venues that I would walk into. So the first thing I would be doing is playing music and listening to my voice, listening to music, listening to pink noise in every component of every speaker, and then asking the house engineer, telling the house engineer, these sound very different. I don't care which one you adjust, but they need to sound the same. So if that
Mhm.
side is broken and you can't fix it, break that side the same way because they need to be the same sound on
Yeah.
both sides.
Yeah.
Preferably don't break anything, fix what's broken over there. But so that was the majority of my setting up, getting ready for a sound check. Um and then from there I've been it's been a long time since I've had to do any kind of shows where I am using a house console. So generally my stuff is dialed in on the console that I'm traveling with.
Yeah, that's
So
nice.
yeah, it's great. And so really it's just kind of a constant tweaking of, is there anything I can make better? How can I make it better? Is there anything that's been bugging me the last few shows? This is my time during the day. It's gotten so much easier with the ability to do virtual sound checks. So
Oh, really? Ah, huh.
so what I'll do is I'll take a show from sometime that week that felt like it was a good show where everything was kind of gelling and I wasn't fighting with anything or anything weird in the room that I was fighting with or the band was fighting with, and I will take all of those tracks and I will play them back through my console, and at that point I could put on really good headphones and really dive in and find the things, like if there was something that was bothering me about a certain instrument or the way certain things were kind of getting in the way of each other, I could really zero in on that stuff either on headphones or on near field monitors and then on the PA and hear how that stuff changes.
Hmm.
And that's all stuff that is best to do prior to sound check.
Yeah.
I've never been the kind of engineer to to make the band sit there and hit the hit the snare drum for 15 minutes. Now I need to hear the rack tom for 15 minutes. Now I need to hear the floor tom for 15 minutes. I,
Yeah.
I try and avoid that as best as possible, as much as possible. And I think the musicians I work with generally appreciate not having to do that. Um,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
and
typically you're only having to do that if there's an issue, right? I mean, you're really
well,
trying to fix.
not at first. When you're first dialing in a mix, you need to do that.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it helps. Sometimes you can have the tech, that musician's tech, do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just doesn't. You don't get the same thing. But where we're at now, when I first started touring, everything was analog. Now that everything is digital, with it's so much easier.
Yeah.
It's funny, in this job, I'm all about everything being digital all the way through. But at home and working with vinyl stuff, I am
Yeah.
and recording in recording studios, I'm as adamant as possible about everything being analog all the way through.
Right.
It's a strange dichotomy, but
Yeah.
but uh, but with everything being so digital with the concert stuff, it's easy to not make musicians sit there and have to hit an
Yeah.
instrument or play an instrument or sing into a microphone without the band for 10 minutes feeling uncomfortable, because they can sound check. I could be recording that sound check multi-track, and then when they're done and off stage, I can play those tracks back, and I could be really soloing up an instrument and fixing everything that needs to happen there while they're off having dinner and they don't even know what's happening.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Another
That's
way too long answer to a very question that you
no,
asked.
no, it's fascinating. I mean, technology is, yeah, it's really making so many things easier and more efficient, easier on everybody,
But I will
digital.
say, even in our digital live world, in the past year, I've gone back to having a rack of analog equipment involved as well, and it's made such a major difference. And a few years
It,
ago, I would never have done that, because I feel like converters, A to D and D to A converters were not good enough.
right. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
can hear that every single step of conversion, I can hear the degradation. And as of recently, there's a few companies that have started making converters that are so high definition that you can not. It's really, really difficult to hear the difference, and the amount that is added by the colorization of those pieces of analog rack gear are worth any changes that are happening in the conversion process.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I now have a rack filled with some fun vintage studio compressors that are
Yeah.
all
Yeah. Yeah. Because of their unique analog sound that is introduced.
things that
Yeah.
the digital console they can't do.
Yeah. Can emulate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than Tedeschi trucks, are there some other artists that you've been involved with that I would know?
Touring. Yeah. So I've been pretty fortunate to have a long-term experiences with the bands that I've toured with. So I've done a little bit of bouncing around, but for the most part, the bands I've worked with, I've stayed with for a very long time until I've moved on to something else. I worked with one of my earliest tours. I worked with the band They Might Be Giants for about 7 years.
Oh, how fun. That must have been fun.
It was amazing. Such a great experience. What a great, and I was really young, so I would say I cut my teeth on that tour, and it was a
Huh.
lot of experimental things, a lot of the musician, like, they're very experimental in the studio, so it was
Yeah.
always a
Yeah. Yeah.
challenge of, listen to these songs that we just recorded, how do we do this live? Really strange things that we would try and accomplish in a live setting. So that was really great to learn that stuff. After that, I worked with Indigo Girls for a very
Wow.
long time.
Huh.
And I still work with Amy of the Indigo Girls in the studio.
Huh.
I've produced her last 4 albums,
Wow.
3 or 4 albums, and we're working on a live album now. And I worked with Brandi Carlile for a little while. I
Yeah.
worked with 311 for a little while.
Wow.
There's others. There's 1 or 2 that I'd rather not
Yeah.
mention, because for the most part, pretty much every musician or band that I've toured with were amazing people to work with, amazing talents, amazing people, and I've had maybe one particularly bad experience, and so I just won't name that tour.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everyone else I've worked with, it's been I've been fortunate. I've worked with really
Oh, I
great.
was going to say, you've been really fortunate. Touring's got to be so tough, so stressful, and people get on each other's nerves, I'm sure. So.
The older you get, the harder it gets, and the more people get on each other's nerves.
Is that right?
When I
Wow.
was
Huh.
yeah, in
They
my
can't figure it out, huh? They can't get their act together.
no, I
You
think
think
it's
you'd
just more
learn.
your patience wears thin the older you
Yeah.
get, like when I was and also like when I was in my 20s and 30s, it was more about it was fun. Like it was more there was more of a party vibe to what I did. But once I became a little more focused on being in a management position, it became less about, like there's no time for that. There's too much
Right.
responsibility. And I like that part of it, but it just makes uh it definitely makes it a little bit less
Heck
fun,
yeah.
a little bit more the
Oh, I mean,
traveling part particularly.
responsibility and yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what you do with Tedeschi and trucks is major. You're wearing several hats, you
I'm
know?
wearing a few hats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unusual and and yet you've been doing it for years and
It's
years.
not that it's not that unusual.
Hmm.
There's a good number of bands that our size, definitely bands that are, a step below the size of this band, where the production manager is also either the monitor engineer or the front of house engineer. Um, we're right on that. We're teetering on that level where it's it's maybe a little bit too much to do to wear
Yeah.
as many hats. Um, but
Well, every year you're doing how many dates? How many? uh,
it changes from year to year. I would say I think we probably did about 80 shows uh, in 2025,
Huh?
somewhere around there. Maybe somewhere between 80 and 90.
All
Uh,
U.S.?
this year it was all U.S. We had one show in Canada.
Hmm.
Usually we'll sprinkle in either a Europe tour or a Japanese tour or an Australian tour. Um,
Wow. Huh.
so yeah, we travel. We do a good bit of traveling.
Well, traveling to Australia or Europe, was that uh, was that enjoyable? Kinda, quite a bit, not so much.
Well, the traveling to there, no, that's terrible.
Yeah.
But I like being in all those places. It's very interesting. I like Australia is a really beautiful country and the people are really amazing. Japan is a really interesting place. What's awesome about traveling to Japan is, or not traveling to Japan, but being in Japan is all of the Kisa bars, all of the vinyl. They're so into
Oh, oh,
hi-fi and
yeah.
vinyl there. So there's all these bars that are just about like the
Yeah.
bar is built around a crazy esoteric hi-fi system,
Right.
and there's someone behind the bar spinning records on a really high-end turntable all night. That I really enjoy that.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Huh. All right. Let's see what else we've got on here. How about regarding a new recording session? Let's say some band wants you to produce. What's your process there? How do you kind of vet them out? Um, make your requests, make sure that it's a good fit for the both of you.
Um. So generally, some of the albums that I produce are live albums, and they're generally albums that I've mixed the concert for. So those are pretty easy
Yeah.
production wise because I know what it needed to sound like in the first place. But
Right.
with newer music, um, I generally I am not a full-time producer, so I'm generally working with people that I work with in a live setting as well, and already have a good working relationship and rapport where we both have similar visions of what we want certain styles of music to sound like.
Yeah.
So in those situations, it's a trust thing for the musician, and the more albums you do with any given musician, the more trust they have in your abilities and your opinions about things. So generally, I'll listen to demos of a song, like an artist's home demos, and make recommendations if I think that the song needs something added to it, or if there's something that's taking me out of the song. Um, it's a visceral experience, music in general. And so for me, musicians that I'm working with on things like this know that how I'm affected by music. And so if I'm listening and I'm not, their vision of their song is not coming through for a certain reason, and I explain that reason, if they agree with that and feel like that's something that should change without compromising what their vision of the song was, then we'll work together on making those changes, um, as well as figuring out, okay, this is the song, this is great. Now let's talk about ideas of what direction the song could go in that will make sense to add 3 other musicians, 5 other musicians, 10 other musicians, whatever the song is going to become.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, and it's a very collaborative thing where either the artist or the band, where everyone is kind of throwing their vision in, and in some respects, at that point, I'm just being somewhat of a referee of hearing all of the
Yeah.
ideas and being like, let's try that one. That one didn't necessarily work. Let's try that one.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you're
and
mainly also dealing with professionals, you know. Can you
yes.
imagine dealing with, you know, with with some people that are really new to the industry? And it would be, because I've been exposed to some of that, and it's, it can be a nightmare.
Well, yes and no. There's also like you wind up in a good position when you have enough experience where um, those artists are maybe eager to learn from the experience you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
and are
Yeah.
trying what your suggestion is.
Yes.
The
Yes.
first albums that I produce, pretty much everything I do, I don't like to work alone. I like pretty much every album I've produced, every album I've mixed is all something. It's all working with another producer or another engineer or with the artist. And so like the albums that I learned about production with, I had a production partner that we were working together and learning at the same time, and then taking those experiences and bringing them to other people's.
Right.
Basically what has to happen is an artist has to hear work that you've done and think to themselves, I want to make an
Yeah.
album that sounds like that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'm very good at making albums that sound like other albums. Um, but
Yeah.
but so
Well,
yeah,
that's
and
what it's supposed to be, is a collaboration. But yeah, it doesn't always work out that way. At least, smoothly for some people. That trust that you've earned plays a major role, so yeah, I just think of so many artists out there who aren't fortunate enough to run into that, and they're just winging it, and it must be very frustrating for both sides to not have that vetting and that experience and that attitude of collaboration, you know.
yeah, I would imagine so. I've been pretty fortunate to not run into that all that
Yeah.
much. Um, Other than when I was in my own bands and everyone was just butting heads, not
Egos.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course. But that being said, Norman, when you listen back to a record that you've made a handful of years ago, like when a bunch of time has gone by, usually by the time you finish a record, you don't want to hear it again because you've
Right.
had to hear it,
Yeah.
those songs over and over and over.
Yeah.
And luckily, like most of the music that I've worked on is all really good music. So like I don't mind hearing it over and over again. But
Yeah.
when you're done with it, it goes on the shelf and you're like, I'm proud of that. Maybe I'll revisit that in 5 years. And when you do, like the times that are the opposite of what you're talking about, or no, that I guess are what you're
Yeah.
talking about, the opposite of what I'm talking about, where you listen to a song and you think to yourself, I can't believe that song got there, and you remember the process of fighting
Yeah.
in the studio, because especially whether if you're butting heads or not, sometimes you're in a studio working on a song and it's 11 o'clock at night and you just want to go to sleep and you don't want to be in there anymore. You've been in there all day and like in that moment, you and an artist are not seeing eye to eye and you're trying to make one thing happen and they're trying to make a different thing happen. And sometimes it can blow up into, it's all creative people. And so it can blow up into a situation where you're fighting each other. And some of those are really fun stories to like look back on a bunch of years later when you're listening to a song and you're like, man, I remember what it took for us to get this song past the finish line.
Yeah.
And those are fun. Those are funny. And those are,
right. Yeah.
Relationships with those musicians grow because of that. When like when you're thinking about a song that you're like, can you believe that this is where that song wound up? When at like 12:45 a.m. that day, we were, throwing things at each other and cursing at each other, like turning off the talkback mic and calling each other. So that stuff is fun. I love that stuff just as much.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're living in an artistic world and you're collaborating with artists. There's passion going on. There's, there's ebb and flow, and the good and the bad. But, as long as the end result ends up, great, then yeah, you've got some wonderful war stories, that feel good. Maybe not at the moment, but later on, hey, we worked through that. We built this thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. How did you get involved with Command Performance AV at the Capitol Audio Fest? I don't know those guys at all. So when you said, oh yeah, I'm going to be there, I was like, really? What are you doing? You're doing a seminar? Well, so what was all that about?
It was my second time doing one of these. I did one of these also at the Making Vinyl conference in Los Angeles a handful of years ago. This one, so Jeff Fox, who owns Command Performance AV, we've become good friends through, so he's in Falls Church, Virginia. With Tedeschi Trucks Band, we often do a residency at the Warner Theater in Washington, D.C. And I became very good friends with this guy, Tom, who was involved in a bunch of restaurants in the area. Him and his partners were big fans of the band and have become very close friends of the band and of myself and our crew. And so my friend Tom is he's also a bit of an audiophile and really likes a lot of the same music that I do. And so one year when we had just become friends, he had hit me up. He was like, you got to come to my friend's shop on your day off. I'll pick you up and take you over there. He just has amazing equipment, really great sounding records. And it's my favorite place to just sit and just have a drink and listen to music after hours, because it's just, crazy equipment that I would never own, but it's just so much fun to listen to. And so I went with him, and Jeff and I and Jesse, who works with Jeff, we all just hit it off. We became instant friends. And every year that we go to DC, I go and visit them, and Jeff has become enough of a fan of Tedeschi Trucks Band that him and his wife have traveled out to many places around the country to come see us when we're doing a residency in a city, and we're there for a few days. So we've just spent a lot of time together. And Jeff is also one of those people, when I was talking about sometimes I'm on the road when I have to be listening to a lacquer or a test.
Yeah.
And that's a no-brainer go-to. His gear, all the gear he has in his shop is so good. So I can take a lacquer there and know exactly what I'm hearing. So that's happened on multiple occasions where I'm on the road and I need to bring a test pressing or a lacquer to his place, and he'll sit there and just watch me listen. And sometimes I'll be like, what do you hear? Do you think? And he'll be like, I think it needs a little work. I don't know if it's not, but so, and then also he is, I don't know if I'm going to get any of this information right, but he's the main importer of Sakura turntables in the country. and
Yeah.
we wound up. And he also works with Nick Doshi, who makes a lot of
Yeah.
really great preamps and amplifiers.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we wound up putting some of their gear in Derek and Susan's studio, Tedeschi Truck
Oh,
Studio in Florida. So those guys have just been, and also, you know, they've been super generous with their time and resources as I've needed help with my system.
right.
So they've just been really great friends and just people that I've always bounced ideas off of. And if I'm troubleshooting anything with my equipment, they're just uh, extremely intelligent people with really good ears, and they know what sounds good.
You'll
So I've
have to you have to introduce me to those guys maybe at the next Capital Audio Fest. Did they did they have a turntable with Doshi and Joseph Audio at the Capital
Yeah, that's
Audio
right.
Fest?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Did you
yeah.
go into that room?
Yes, those Joseph audio speakers sounded great.
Oh, yeah. Did you see they had EVPs under the stands?
I did see that they had
Okay.
giant UPs under those stands.
Yeah. Those are his. So, yeah.
Yeah,
He brought those himself.
while I was sitting there listening, I turned to Nick and I said, "Are those EVPs?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like,
Mhm.
"Cool."
Yeah.
Yeah, those little Joseph audio speakers sounded enormous. I was
I
very shocked,
know. Yeah.
but
They always sound good. And, it's a small room, it's a small speaker, but even I mean all their speakers sound good. I can't think of a show where Joseph Audio didn't have one of the best sounding, demos at the show.
cool. This was
Yeah.
my first one of those hi-fi shows. I had never experienced anything like that before, so
Yeah, you
I had
said it was overwhelming, huh?
extremely overwhelming. Extremely
Yeah.
overwhelming. But yeah, so that's how I became friends with those guys, and then uh, Jeff hit me up, and Jeff always likes to do something special in his rooms at these shows. They'll do like a theme, like different decade themes, and then they'll wear costumes and decorate the room to be that decade.
Oh,
And so he had asked me if I was going to be off the road, if I'd be interested in coming by and doing a presentation of some of the stuff that I do when I'm doing vinyl work. Um,
I wish
and
I had, wish I had been able to attend that. But yeah, I had other duties and couldn't make it at the time. So,
you missed some very important stuff, Norman.
sure. Was it
Um,
recorded?
I hope not. I hope not. I'm a behind the scenes kind of person. I don't love being in front of.
Yeah, I don't know why. Well, you're going to get more in front of the scenes now. um, so how important is the role of acoustics in what you do?
Well, it's very important, and
Good
I
answer.
I'm finding it more and more important since I've moved. I lived in New York City for a long time, and I had my room dialed in really well, and now I've moved for the first time to a new space where I'm learning how much room acoustics really, you know, I- obviously in recording studios, it's always, and in live concert settings, it's always a thing that I'm battling.
Yeah.
Especially in concert situations, man, I mean, the number of places we go into where a newly designed facility and the people will want my opinion, and I'm just like, why would you not pay any attention to the fact that everyone's going to hang speakers in this place and shoot sound in a direction where you have nothing absorbing anything? It's concrete or a reflective tint roof, or just all of these things that are the reason that you have to make compromises where it can't sound good everywhere in the venue. Yeah, it's the best sounding venues are either the ones outside where there's nothing reflective,
Hmm.
or ones where they actually care to put some of that effort into the design of
Yeah.
the place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, room acoustics have always played a huge role for, we're constantly having to battle those kinds of things. And then in recording studios, just working on records where we're making something sound a certain way, and then when we leave the room and we're listening to it, it doesn't sound that way anymore.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah. Well,
Or
hopefully studios
we're
are doing.
in mastering, we're having to battle things that we didn't know were there when we were mixing
Yeah.
because we
Right.
couldn't hear it in that space.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
I
that stuff
mean,
is all really important. And now I have all of my gear in a new room for the first time in a lot of years, where there are frequencies that I'm used to coming out of my system that are disappearing. So I'm having to make adjustments based on that. Um, and
well, in the recording studios, there's no excuse for that. There's standards, and that can be, that can be done. That can be achieved. But in a concert venue where you've got, different types of performances, and they're supposed to be supportive rather than, this is not a playback environment. Um, it's difficult. You just gotta, you're stuck with whatever you got, But I do think that there are some newer venues that have some variable acoustics that are definitely beneficial. And then as far as the home environment, we should be trying to achieve what the studios are doing, so that we can have that, so that it does translate well from the studio to our playback environment. And again, we can do that if we think about it, and if we try, if we pay attention to it. In my world, the recording studios are usually thinking about acoustics first, and in the consumer world, they don't think about it at all. Or if they do, it's, after the fact, or last, or whatever.
well, in the concert world, unfortunately it's often after the fact too, because they design a lot of venues and they don't check with acousticians at all.
Yeah, you
So,
just have architects who
some do.
who missed that semester.
It's very rare. And often what'll happen is when they're looking at what everything's going to cost to build the venue, they'll
Yeah.
get to that line and they'll be like, okay, well, we could save money here and not do some of this stuff.
But what's
But
the point?
but the other thing that happens a lot is they don't ever consider that. They build a venue, and then when people are upset about the sound of the venue, they start looking into the options of how they can uh, fix some of those issues, and then they often find, well, if we would have done it
Yeah.
in the first place, it
Would have
probably
cost
would
a fraction of the
have been a
money.
budget. But now, after the fact, to do it, it's going to
Yeah.
cost as much.
Yeah.
And we go into some venues where we'll talk to the production people at the venue and be like, everything was great. Here's the problem. Here's why the things that we had to fight sonically. And some of those venues will take that information into consideration, and we will go back there and they'll be excited to be like, hey, check this out. We fixed some of what you were complaining about last time you were here. See if you notice a difference. And there's a handful of venues we go into that do that, and it's great. It's like, maybe it's not perfect, but it's way better than it
A lot.
was
Yeah.
when we were here last time, and the sound was just bouncing all over the place.
Yeah.
And then we go to some venues where we'll be like, you really need to address this issue. And they'll look into it and be like, well, we looked into it. It's going to cost, this many hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're not going to do that. And
Yeah.
sometimes we won't go back to that venue, or sometimes we will, and I'll just complain nonstop about being unhappy with what it sounded like.
Yeah.
And, and that causes other things to happen where, my systems engineer, his goal is for every seat in the venue to sound the same, whether you're all the way in the back or all the way in the front.
Mm-hmm.
In a perfect world, you can achieve that. And if the venue has paid attention to some room acoustics, you can achieve that to a certain extent. In a venue that doesn't do that, you can't be focusing on making it sound amazing for the $15 seats all the way in the nosebleed section, when that's going to cause the $500 seats in the front row to sound like a disaster.
Yeah.
because to throw sound all the way in the back of the venue, things are going to be bouncing all over the place, and now it's going to sound bad everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So you have to start to compromise and be like, well, those seats are not going to get the optimal sound because the expensive seats have to sound okay. And you wind up having to play games like that. And in venues where they've paid more attention to room treatment, you don't have to make those compromises. You can know
Right.
that, well, if I try and throw sound all the way to the top back of the venue, it's not going to cause things to bounce all over the place because they've put, room treatments around, and it's
Yeah.
things are going to be absorbed where they need to be absorbed. And, it's a constant battle. So yeah, room acoustics have been very much a part of my life in every aspect of what I do. In my home situation, my listening space is always part of my living space as well. It's not like I have a studio that's just dedicated
Right.
only to listening. So I have to play that balance of what can I do in here that's going to help while still being able to have this being a living space and
Yeah.
not have my girlfriend want to move out of our house.
There's a lot of things you can do incognito, and I'll make it up there sometime, and check it out and help you,
I'd love
any way I
that.
can. So what do you do for fun when you're not on the road?
I fight with room acoustics in my living room.
I'm glad you think that that's fun. I do.
What
I
do I
enjoy it.
I really like seeing live music. My girlfriend and I go to a lot of concerts.
All kinds of music.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, not all kinds of music. We're not really going to a ton of like polka.
Oh,
Uh, but no, we like to see music performed, like most kinds of music. So we go to see a lot of shows. We listen to a lot of music at home. We're both movie buffs, so we like to go to the movies.
wow.
My girlfriend is an amazing cook, so we like to eat really good food. And we're both workaholics, so we're both working a lot. So even when I'm home, I'm working. Um, and but I just get a kick out of hearing gear, how like listening to how changing a cable makes a piece of gear sound different, or
Oh,
like
really? Okay.
making the
Yeah.
speaker slightly different, or changing the setup on a cartridge makes something sound slightly, like I like to get in the weeds of that stuff, and I like to listen to different pressings of records and compare, like, how does the
Yeah.
original pressing of this record compare to this audiophile reissue that just came out? Do I
Yeah.
hear tape degradation? I like sounds. I like to listen to stuff. So
You and we will get into the weeds because I like all that kind of stuff too. So we're gonna have to compare notes. Um,
awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so let's see. Best and worst parts of your business or our industry. What do you like the most, and what do you hate the most?
Um, what do I like the most? What do I hate the most? I mean, the fact that I've made a living for myself working in the music industry is such an amazing thing.
Big
Um,
accomplishment.
and
Yeah.
I like, other than putting myself through college and supporting myself as a teenager, I've only had jobs working in music, and music has been my passion since I went to my first concert when I was 3 years old, and I've been collecting
3.
records probably since that time.
Yeah.
So there's like, music is always part of my life. I'm very rarely sitting in a room where there's not music playing. So, I mean, that's my favorite part of my job, is just that people are paying me to work in some fashion in music, whether it's in live music, production, um, fi- uh, working on records. That's really, having that creative outlet is what I love the most.
Yeah. Yeah. It is
Uh,
pretty awesome. You're a lucky guy. That's for sure.
Fortunate, not lucky.
Okay. All right. You are.
Fortunate.
You're a fortunate guy.
Um, the, what I don't know if there's anything I hate. I mean, the being a production manager has a lot of time sitting at a computer and on a telephone. And I don't love that part of it,
Yeah.
but that part is, that's the part that pays the bills.
Yeah.
So, and I happen to have good logistic skills, and leadership skills. So, um, I love the team. I love my team that that I work with, and a lot of them that I put together. And um, I love the things that you know, our tour is not the easiest thing in the world. Like we have a 12-piece band. We've got anywhere from 3 to 4 semis worth of gear at a time. And we're often thrown into scenarios where it's a major challenge to make the show happen. And there's really no situation that my crew and I can't pull off
Hmm.
under the worst conditions. I mean, we've been in situations where 3 or 4 or 5 members of our crew come down with COVID at the same time and are out of commission, and the rest of us still have to make the show happen, and we do it and we pull it off in a way that the audience doesn't know
Right.
anything's wrong, and the
Yeah.
band doesn't know that anything's wrong. And
Yeah.
I take a lot of pride in that, and that I work with a crew of people who also have that much passion for the work that they do.
And
I love all
integrity.
the the telephone and email aspect of my job is, and I
Yeah.
guess living on a tour bus is not, as like I said, every year that gets harder and harder. But there's nothing about it I hate. If there was anything about it I hate, I would change that. I've always made it a point to make sure that I was doing things that I either enjoyed or found fulfillment, even if it's difficult. So if there was something about my job that I hated, I would change that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can't really
Well,
say there's anything I hate about it.
yeah, it sounds like the stuff that even is not your favorite, you still get satisfaction out of, you know?
Yes, and even though I live here in Ohio, I'm a New Yorker. So
Mhm.
I've spent my whole life thriving on misery. So the things that I hate give me more strength.
Yeah, you're not the typical New Yorker, although I guess you are. It just doesn't, you don't have that attitude, that typical New York attitude.
I
Uh,
appreciate that. I'm really trying to embrace my Midwestern lifestyle.
yeah, I
I've
know. See,
learned to wave at strangers. Uh,
yeah, I know. Yeah, I find it really different too, being from the West Coast. Um, it is different out here.
when did
Uh,
you move to Ohio?
when or why?
When? Well,
Oh,
and
when? It's about 25 years ago. So a long time ago. Um, the Owens Corning Science and Technology Center is 10 minutes from my house. So they moved me out as an acoustical engineer, and I love that. And I still do some work out there, use their facilities. But I mean, we're in the middle of, there's just forest and fields and stuff, and it's getting a little bit built up since we've been here, but it's quite different than the beach.
uh
We do miss the beach. My wife, she too grew up in Southern California,
okay.
and we miss the mountains. We miss friends, and we miss all the concerts. LA, oh my gosh, concerts all the time.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we miss a lot, but here we are. So
I have to say that was a worry that I had when we decided to move from New York City to here, was that with the amount of concerts we go to, I was worried that we would start to see less live music, that we wouldn't have as much of an opportunity, and that I wouldn't have as many connections as I did for as many concerts that we like to go to. But that
yeah,
hasn't been the case. There's so much music here in Cleveland,
yeah,
and there's I find myself going to more music uh, that I of bands that I didn't know. Whereas in New York City, there's you wake up in the morning, if you're in the mood to see a concert, you look online, someone you know is playing in New York City
yeah.
every
That
day.
was LA too. I know, it was awesome.
And
You didn't
here
have
it's
enough
not,
money or time to go to them all.
yeah, and here it's not like that. So if you're in the mood to go to a concert on any given night, you're probably gonna go see something that you don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
And
but it's also probably a small, intimate venue, which is awesome.
sometimes it is, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
But
Cleveland, though, does much better than Columbus. We seem to get skipped over often, Cleveland and Cincinnati and not Columbus.
yeah, well, you
So,
guys have a great. Is the Newport Music Hall still there?
yeah, yeah,
That's a great venue. I
yeah.
haven't been there in many years, but I used to do They Might Be Giants shows there all the time.
Oh, really? Yeah. Huh.
That was a fun venue.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's not the same as in New York City. Everything is a venue. But
Yes.
but Cleveland has a lot. Cleveland has a pretty pretty impressive music scene. So
And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame
Yeah.
remembers. We go there
Yeah.
often. In fact, we were there a few days ago. There's
Oh,
a
yeah.
I've been wanting to, we kept trying to go and we kept missing it, the last showing of it. But they have a new theater in there that is designed to be a little bit like a concert experience. So the screens move around and there's smoke machines and lights and two gigantic pillars of speakers that are not really speakers. They light up and they flash and stuff. But the movie that they show is like a 20-minute movie that was directed by Jonathan Demme, who
Huh.
uh, who directed the Talking Heads Stop Making Sense and a bunch of
Oh,
like
huh.
big
Yeah.
big music films.
Right.
It's highlights of a bunch of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction concerts, and then it ends with the full guitar solo of Prince playing "While My Guitar Gently Weeps."
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so good. It's
Yeah.
really
And
really
he
good.
throws the
So
guitar.
yeah, and he recut it, so it's not the same footage that you've seen before when you
Oh,
watch YouTube.
oh, yeah,
Um, we
yeah.
went there. We were there just this past weekend
Uh-huh. Huh. Huh.
yeah.
Yeah, we went there a year ago, coming up, is the last time I was there. Anyway, we go up there every once in a while.
Yeah.
Brian, what's the thing you're most proud of?
Well, I think the thing I'm the albums that I've been involved in making, I'm particularly proud of. Um, if you look at my house, there's also like some concert posters of shows that I'm pretty proud of that
Oh,
took a
cool.
lot, took a lot of work to make those shows happen. So, there are a handful of concerts that we've pulled off that I'm pretty proud of, but the most recent album that is out that I worked on was a concert it's a live album, and it's a concert that we did with Tedeschi Trucks Band 10 years ago. It was at a festival, like a 3-day concert festival, and we us and Leon Russell, uh, we we reunited almost all of the still living members of the Mad Dogs and Englishmen, the Joe Cocker
Wow.
Mad Dogs and Englishmen tour. So almost all of the still living members of that band. And when we had first started talking about it, Joe Cocker was still alive. He passed away pretty early on in the planning of that. But
And there would
Leon
have been no Jim Gordon because he was
Jim
still
Gordon
alive at
was
the
still
time, but in
alive, but
prison.
he was in jail at that point.
Yeah.
Jim Keltner is one of the few surviving people that were not there for this event because he had something else going on. But pretty much everyone else that was in the original Mad Dogs and Englishmen were on stage with our band. So our band is 12 people. And then we added another 10 musicians that were from the Mad Dogs and Englishmen tour. And then we also added several other guest musicians to sing the Joe Cocker stuff. So Susan Tedeschi sang a handful of the songs, but then we had other people like Warren Haynes or Chris Robinson from the Black Crows or Dave Mason, who wrote Feeling All Right.
Sure. Good fit.
John JB from Widespread Panic, a whole bunch of different guests to sing, and we did an entire concert of the Mad Dogs and Englishmen music, and we recorded it. We multi-tracked the whole thing, and then we went through all of the steps of we mixed it during quarantine. So while we were in quarantine, Bobby Tees, who is the engineer that I work with Tedeschi Trucks Band, he does monitors for the band, and he's also he is their studio engineer. He would do a mix of a song, and he would print it and email it to me, and then I would make comments, and then he would mix it again, email it to me, I'd make comments, and we'd go back and forth with every single song over email between me, him, and Derek, until we felt like the song was done. And then Bobby would and he was mixing up. Derek and Susan have a vintage Neve console in their recording studio. So he was mixing everything in the analog world, even though the original tracks were recorded high-res digital. So we had, I think, 50 something tracks of high-res.
Yeah.
And so he was mixing all that analog, and we were just listening to the mixes digitally so that he could email them around. But then once they were done, he would print the mix to tape, then digitize the mix off of the tape machine so that we can hear how that sounded, and then make any more adjustments that needed to be made until we had the entire album laid out on half-inch tape. Once the tape was done, we had all of the metal work done. We had test pressings, and the album was done, and then it sat on the shelf until earlier this year when I had hit up our manager, and I was like, this album is ready to go. Like, we just have to get it out there. It's so good. People have been wanting it for such a long time.
And it's history. Yeah.
He and the label went through it. It's not an easy album to put out, aside from the fact that there's like 40 musicians on it that all have to be involved in
approvals
stuff.
Yeah.
It's all like Beatles songs and Rolling Stones songs and Bob Dylan songs. It's all music,
publishing rights.
Yeah, so it was quite an undertaking.
Yeah.
We got the album out in, I want to say September it came out.
Really, huh?
And it's really special. But being at that concert, when we were putting that concert on, and seeing all of these musicians who had toured together 40 years prior, most of them had not seen each other since then. And a lot of them had not continued their musical endeavors after that tour. But that tour changed all of their lives so much. And that movie was such a big part of my childhood, watching the original Mad Dogs and Englishmen movie. So now seeing all of these people much older and seeing them reunite, and what
was any of that filmed, Brian?
There's a movie that a friend of mine, Jesse Lauder, directed called Learning to Live Together. And it'll be it'll be available for streaming pretty soon on all of the streaming platforms. Uh,
Cool.
it's a really, really great movie, and it's about the original Mad Dogs and Englishmen tour and this reunion tour together.
Huh.
Um, and so yeah, that's worth watching. That's a really great
Yeah.
movie. And
You've
so
seen it?
countless times.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Um, so we just, and then on top of it, like all of these musicians that had not performed in so long, getting on stage at a very large festival where there were probably, I don't know, somewhere between 75,000 to 100,000 people at this concert. I might be exaggerating. It might be a little less than that, but a very large festival, getting on stage to just this crowd that all knew this music and was singing along and excited. Um, there was just something really amazing feeling about being a major part of putting that together.
Yeah.
And so now the fact that there's an album of it that I co-produced and co-mixed with the team, that was a major. I'm super proud of that.
Yeah.
And so in talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, people ask why it took 10 years to get this album out. And there's several reasons that I can go into about why it took 10 years to put this album out. But regardless, just by coincidence, the year the album comes out is the same year that Joe Cocker gets inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we Tedeschi Trucks Band was asked to be the house band for that portion of the induction ceremony.
Yeah.
So a couple weeks right before I saw you, like the week before I saw you at the Capitol Audio Fest, we were out in Los Angeles playing at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction concert, doing the Joe Cocker portion of the show.
That's awesome.
And
Wow.
and that's another thing that I was super proud of. I got to sit in the truck and mix with Bob Clearmountain, who
Oh, really?
who
Yeah.
I didn't even know until I walked in the door that he was involved. And I, when as an engineer, a band's engineer in a scenario like that, generally, you're playing more of a producer role. You're not hands-on in any way, and you're just sitting there listening and asking for some adjustments to be made. And I walked into the remote truck, and Bob was there, and the band was running some of the songs, and I was starstruck because Bob has mixed, probably a quarter of my record collection.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on our stage. Again, 12 people in the band, and plus the guests that were singing with us for the concert. And at one point, when I had asked for a couple of changes to be made, Bob looked at me and said, "There's so much going on. Do you mind handling the faders on that side of the console?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Hell yeah, Bob!" And I'm sitting there like hands on faders, like watching him and doing my thing.
Huh.
Quite a fun experience.
Oh, that's very cool. I hope you
Yeah.
got a picture of that.
I do actually. I do have a couple of that. Yeah.
Bob has been at a couple of these trade shows, like the Capitol Audio Fest. I don't remember which ones, but I remember one a few years back where he was introducing some of his own monitors, and
Oh, really?
EVPs were either under the monitors and or the electronics that were driving them. I just remember meeting him in that room when I was.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, nice
Yeah,
guy.
he was super nice, very, very welcoming, and
Yeah.
that was a cool
And I
experience.
understand he's got a new studio that's up and running now after the fire in
Oh, that's good.
Arcadia or wherever he had his studio. So
Right.
that was a lot of people. Super sad. So many people I know lost so much.
Yeah.
No lives, stuff, But anyway, many are still trying to recover from that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, that was super good. I mean, yeah, you should be. I mean, that is fantastic that is in history and uh, something that you will always be able to cherish because you've been a part of it. Is there anything else that you want to add before we go?
Not that I could think of. I think I've been long-winded enough.
Well, I think we've discovered, at least I have, that we have an awful lot in common, and we're going to have to get together. I'll have to make it up there and help out, and I know there's a lot that I can glean from you, and probably vice versa. So
Probably more vice versa, but
we'll help each other out, and I'm really looking forward to that. So
awesome.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you for asking me to do this. It's been
Thank you for doing it, Brian. Thank you. And we can also thank Brian Fisher for getting us together.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So when this gets posted, I'll be sure and shoot him a text and let him know. So, and by the way, did you ever check out the Paul Gagin mic check interview that I did?
I did not.
I suggested that to you. You should check it out. I think you'll get a kick out of it. You'd enjoy it.
Tell me who he is.
So he did work for several companies, including Fender, making guitars, making effects, and he just knows the guitar sound. I called him a tone master of the electric guitar. And he's got some great stories of, celebrities and stuff, but man, he knows pickups and guitars, everything to do with how they sound, how to make them sound this way or that way. And I mean, he's a super unusual guy. There's hardly anybody out there like him, and somebody like you, I'm sure would enjoy it. So cool. Derek would probably enjoy it too. He'd probably relate to a lot of the stuff that he says. Very cool guy. He lives down in Huntington Beach. But yeah, he worked in Leo Fender's space after Leo was gone.
Oh,
so
wow.
Yeah, he's a neat individual.
All right, I'll check it out.
Well, Brian, it was wonderful. I thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day. And I hope we get together soon.
I hope so too.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
If you wind up having any time between now and mid February, I'll be in town pretty much all through that chunk of time. So
okay, mid February.
If you find any reason to take the trip,
okay, sounds good. All right, we'll try.
Awesome, bud. Thank you.
All right, see you, Brian.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching this episode, and if you would like to see more, click here or here. And don't forget to go to avroomservice.com to see how we can help you make the most of your listening experience.